The Discovery. Admiral Sarah Chen stood rigid on the command deck of the exploration vessel Phoenix, her weathered hands gripping the railing, as she studied the mysterious fleet floating in the darkness of space. The ships hummed motionless against the star-speckled void, their hulls dark and silent like ancient sentinels guarding forgotten secrets. Sensor analysis complete. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Marcus Thompson from his station. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up detailed scans of the derelict vessels. 23 ships total. No life signs detected. Power signatures are minimal, possibly emergency systems only. Sarah's sharp eyes narrowed as she examined the data streaming across the main display. The ships were unlike anything in the Confederation's database. Their design was blocky and utilitarian, lacking the sleek curves and energy-efficient lines that characterize modern spacecraft. Heavy armor plating covered their surfaces, and what appeared to be outdated weapon systems jutted from their hulls like thorns from a rose stem. "How old are they?" Sarah asked, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. Marcus ran another analysis, his brow furrowing as the results appeared. "Based on metallurgical composition and cosmic radiation exposure, I'd estimate these ships have been drifting here for approximately 250 years, give or take a decade." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. 250 years ago, humanity had barely mastered interplanetary travel within their own solar system. The first successful faster-than-light drive wouldn't be invented for another century after these ships were supposedly built. "That's impossible," muttered Commander Elena Vasquez, the Phoenix's executive officer. "We didn't have the technology to build interstellar vessels back then, let alone an entire fleet." Sarah remained quiet, her mind racing through the implications. Throughout her 40-year career in the Confederation Navy, she had encountered numerous mysteries, but this one felt different. There was something hauntingly familiar about these ships, something that tugged at the edges of her memory like a half-forgotten dream. "Admiral," called out Communications Officer James Liu, "we're receiving an incoming transmission from the Luminary delegation. They're requesting permission to approach." Sarah suppressed a sigh. The Luminary were one of the Confederation's most technologically advanced species, and they had a tendency to insert themselves into any significant discovery. Their natural luminescence and ethereal appearance often masked their condescending attitude toward younger spacefaring races like humanity. "Permission granted," Sarah replied. "Direct them to Docking Bay 3. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Chiral of the Luminary glided into the Phoenix's observation lounge, accompanied by 2 attendants. His translucent skin pulsed with soft blue light, and his elongated features bore an expression of barely concealed amusement. "Admiral Chen," Chiral said, his voice carrying the musical quality characteristic of his species, "how fascinating that you've discovered these relics. May I examine your preliminary findings?" Sarah gestured to the holographic display that dominated the center of the room. The derelict fleet rotated slowly in 3-dimensional detail, each ship labeled with basic specifications and energy readings. Chiral circled the display, his luminescence flickering in what Sarah had learned to recognize as condescension. "How quaint," he murmured. "The design philosophy is positively archaic. Look at these weapon arrays, kinetic projectiles, and primitive plasma cannons. And the propulsion systems, they appear to be using fusion drives combined with some form of rudimentary FTL technology. We haven't been able to identify the origin of these ships," Sarah said, keeping her voice neutral despite her growing irritation. "Oh, but it's quite obvious," Chiral replied, waving a slender hand dismissively. "These are clearly human vessels. The design aesthetics, the inefficient use of space, the overemphasis on weapons and armor, it all speaks to humanity's early attempts at interstellar travel." Sarah exchanged a glance with Elena, who looked equally skeptical. "Ambassador, our historical records show no evidence of humanity building interstellar fleets in the early 22nd century. Chiral's laughter was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Perhaps your records are incomplete, Admiral. Or perhaps this was some secret project that failed spectacularly. Look at them, drifting here like cosmic debris, a monument to human ambition exceeding human capability. Before Sarah could respond, her personal communicator chirped. She excused herself and stepped aside to take the message. It was from Lieutenant Thompson on the bridge. Admiral, we've managed to access one of the ship's computer cores. You need to see this immediately. Sarah turned back to Kyrell. Ambassador, if you'll excuse me, we have new data coming in. I'll have my staff share our findings with your delegation once we've completed our analysis. Kyrell inclined his head gracefully. Of course, Admiral. Though I doubt you'll find anything to contradict my assessment. These ships are clearly failed human experiments. Primitive, outdated, and ultimately worthless except as historical curiosities. As the luminary delegation departed, Sarah hurried to the bridge, Alina close behind. Lieutenant Thompson was waiting at his station, his face pale with excitement. What did you find? Sarah asked. Thompson pulled up a series of images and documents on his screen. The computer core was heavily encrypted, but we managed to crack one of the data partitions. Admiral, these ships were part of something called Project Vanguard. According to these files, they were launched from Earth in 2087. 2087. Alina leaned forward, studying the data. That's even earlier than we thought. How did they achieve FTL capability? Thompson highlighted a technical schematic. They didn't. Not exactly. These ships used a theoretical drive system called a quantum tunnel generator. It wasn't true FTL as we understand it, but rather a way to create shortcuts through space-time. The technology was abandoned because it was considered too unstable. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she read through the mission parameters. Project Vanguard wasn't just an exploration mission. It was an exodus. Each ship carried 10,000 colonists in cryogenic suspension, along with everything needed to establish a self-sufficient colony. There's more, Thompson continued. According to these logs, 12 separate fleets were launched, each heading to different sectors of the galaxy. This is Fleet 7, codenamed Perseverance. 12 fleets. Alina's voice was barely above a whisper. That's over 1 million people. Why isn't this in our historical records? Sarah was about to respond when alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. The tactical display lit up with new contacts, dozens of them, appearing seemingly out of nowhere. Admiral, called the tactical officer. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration matches Zephyrian Empire vessels. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the Zephyrian fleet materialize around them. The Zephyrians were known for their aggressive expansion and their belief in technological superiority. Their ships were sleek predators, bristling with advanced weapons and protected by the most sophisticated shields in known space. Incoming transmission, reported Liu. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the reptilian features of a Zephyrian commander. His scales were a deep crimson, indicating his high rank, and his yellow eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence. I am War Commander Vexhai of the Zephyrian Empire, he announced in heavily accented Confederate standard. This sector has been claimed by the Empire. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Sarah stepped forward, her posture straight and uncompromising. Commander Vexhai, I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Confederate Exploration Fleet. We are conducting a scientific survey of these derelict vessels. This region is unclaimed space according to all existing treaties. Vexhai's forked tongue flicked out in what Sarah recognized as a gesture of disdain. Treaties with lesser species are irrelevant. These ancient hulks are now property of the Empire. You have 10 minutes to retreat. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Sarah's mind raced through their options. The Phoenix was an exploration vessel, not a warship. Against a full Zephyrian battle group, they stood no chance in direct combat. Admiral, Thompson spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. I'm detecting energy signatures from the derelict fleet. It's faint, but something's happening. Sarah turned to the tactical display and felt her breath catch. Deep within the ancient human ships, lights were beginning to flicker to life. Power readings that had been dormant for centuries were slowly climbing. One by one, the vessels of Fleet 7 were awakening. "What did you do?" Elena asked Thompson. "Nothing," he protested. "We only accessed the computer core. We didn't activate anything." Sarah's communicator buzzed again, this time with an encrypted message using protocols she hadn't seen in decades. Her hands shook slightly as she decoded it, revealing a simple text transmission. "Automated defense protocol activated. Vanguard Fleet CVN online. Awaiting command authorization." Below the message was a series of command codes that seemed to burn themselves into Sarah's memory. She looked up at the view screen, where the Zephyrian ships were moving into attack formation, their weapons charging. Then she looked at the awakening human fleet, primitive by modern standards, dismissed as worthless relics by the Luminary, claimed as salvage by the Zephyrians. But Sarah had spent her life studying military history, and she knew that sometimes the old ways, the forgotten technologies, held surprises that modern minds couldn't anticipate. Project Vanguard had been launched in humanity's darkest hour, when resources were scarce and extinction seemed imminent. The engineers and scientists of that era had been desperate, brilliant, and utterly unconventional in their approaches. "Lieutenant Thompson," she said quietly, "establish a secure link to the Vanguard Fleet's command network. Use the codes we just received." "Admiral." Elena looked concerned. "Those ships are ancient. Even if they're operational, they can't possibly stand against modern Zephyrian technology." Sarah smiled grimly. "Perhaps, or perhaps our ancestors were more clever than anyone gives them credit for. The Luminary called these ships primitive. The Zephyrians see them as junk. But I wonder, what if that's exactly what they were meant to think?" As Thompson worked to establish the connection, Sarah watched the power readings from the ancient fleet continue to climb. Whatever secrets Project Vanguard held, they were about to be revealed. And somehow, she had a feeling that the arrogant Zephyrians and condescending Luminary were about to learn a very important lesson about underestimating human ingenuity. The countdown timer on the tactical display showed 8 minutes remaining before the Zephyrian deadline expired. 8 minutes to unlock the mysteries of a fleet that shouldn't exist, built with technology that was supposedly impossible for its time. Sarah gripped the command codes tighter. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of her crew, but potentially the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. The ancient fleet waited silently in the darkness, its secrets ready to be unleashed upon those who had mocked its seemingly primitive design. The real question was, what had humanity's ancestors truly built out here in the depths of space, and why had they hidden it for so long? The secret colony. 8 minutes. That's all the time Admiral Sarah Chen had before the Zephyrian Empire opened fire on her exploration vessel. Her fingers flew across the command console as Lieutenant Thompson established a connection to the awakening Vanguard fleet. The ancient ships hummed with increasing energy, their long-dormant systems coming online one by one. "Connection established, Admiral," Thompson reported, his voice tight with tension. "The fleet is requesting command authorization." Sarah input the codes from the encrypted message, her heart pounding as she waited for the system to respond. The bridge fell silent except for the soft chirping of instruments and the distant hum of the Phoenix's engines. Suddenly, the main view screen flickered and changed. Instead of the tactical display, Sarah found herself looking at a human face, a woman with short gray hair and piercing green eyes, wearing an unfamiliar uniform. "Command authorization accepted," the woman said, her voice carrying a slight accent Sarah couldn't place. "This is Captain Maria Rodriguez, commanding Fleet 7 of Project Vanguard. Please identify yourself and state the current date." Sarah straightened, acutely aware that everyone on the bridge was staring at the screen in shock. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Confederate Navy. The current date is June 15th, 2342. Captain Rodriguez's expression didn't change, but Sarah saw something flicker in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. 255 years. We've been waiting a long time for this moment, Admiral. I assume the presence of hostile xenoforces means the contingency protocols are now active. Captain Rodriguez, Sarah said carefully, Are you alive? Our scans showed no life signs aboard your vessels. A slight smile crossed Rodriguez's face. Not in the conventional sense. Admiral, my crew and I exist in quantum stasis, our consciousness uploaded into the fleet's neural network, while our bodies remain in cryogenic suspension. We are neither alive nor dead, but something in between. It was the only way to maintain the fleet for centuries without aging or consuming resources. Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming military protocol. That's impossible. Consciousness transfer was only theorized in your era. The technology didn't exist. Many things were kept from the public record, Commander, Rodriguez replied. Project Vanguard was humanity's last hope. When we launched in 2087, Earth was dying. Climate collapse, resource depletion, political chaos. Our species faced extinction within decades. The 12 fleets weren't just colony ships. They were arcs, each carrying a piece of humanity's future. The tactical display in the corner of the screen showed the Zephyrian countdown, 6 minutes remaining. War Commander Vexay's ships continued their approach, weapons systems fully charged. Captain, Sarah said urgently, we're facing immediate threat from the Zephyrian Empire. They've claimed this sector and given us 6 minutes to withdraw. The Phoenix is an exploration vessel. We're not equipped for combat against their technology. Rodriguez's smile widened slightly. But that's where you're wrong, Admiral. You assume our technology is inferior because it appears primitive. Tell me, what do you know about the quantum paradox drive? The what? Thompson interjected. Our scans show fusion drives and some kind of modified FTL system. But misdirection, Rodriguez interrupted. The first rule of survival. Never let potential enemies know your true capabilities. For 2.5 centuries, we've drifted here, appearing to be nothing more than derelict hulks with outdated technology. But appearances, Admiral, can be deceiving. Sarah's mind raced. You've been conscious all this time. Waiting. Sleeping. Mostly. Our systems wake us when certain conditions are met. The approach of human vessels, the detection of hostile forces, or the reception of specific command codes. Your arrival triggered the first protocol. The Zephyrians triggered the second. 4 minutes, Admiral, Thompson warned. Rodriguez's expression hardened. Admiral Chen, I need you to transmit the following message to the Zephyrian commander. Vanguard Fleet 7 claims this sector under the Terra Supremacy Protocols of 2086. He won't understand the reference, but it will buy us time through confusion. Sarah nodded to Liu, who quickly transmitted the message. Moments later, War Commander Vexay's reptilian face reappeared on the screen, his scales flickering with annoyance. What deception is this? He hissed. There are no Terra Supremacy Protocols. You dare waste my time with meaningless words. Before Sarah could respond, Rodriguez's image appeared on a secondary screen, transmitting directly to the Zephyrian flagship. War Commander Vexay, I am Captain Maria Rodriguez, defender of humanity's future. You have entered space claimed by the Terran Vanguard. Withdraw immediately. Vexay's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied Rodriguez's image. You speak from the ancient derelicts. Impossible. These ships are dead metal, primitive constructs from a primitive species. Your tricks will not. His words were cut short as every ship in the Vanguard fleet suddenly blazed to life. Running lights illuminated their hulls, revealing intricate patterns of circuitry that had been invisible moments before. The blocky, utilitarian vessels began to reshape themselves, armor plates sliding aside to reveal hidden weapon arrays and advanced sensor systems. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered one of the Phoenix's bridge officers. The transformation was mesmerizing. What had appeared to be crude armor plating was actually adaptive nanotech shielding. The primitive weapon systems unfolded into configurations that defied conventional understanding. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the Phoenix's sensors could properly measure. "Quantum displacement field generators online," Rodriguez announced calmly. "Neural link synchronization at 98%. All defensive systems active." The Zephyrian commander's scales had turned pale green, a color Sarah recognized as indicating shock or fear. This is not possible. "Your technology." "Our technology," Rodriguez interrupted, "was developed in secret by humanity's greatest minds, facing the certainty of extinction. We had no choice but to think beyond conventional limitations. While your species developed along predictable technological paths, we were forced to explore the impossible." Sarah watched in awe as the Vanguard fleet moved into formation with perfect synchronization. The ships seemed to communicate instantaneously, reacting as a single organism rather than individual vessels. "Admiral Chen," Rodriguez addressed her again, "I invite you to dock with the command carrier Destiny's Dawn. There is much you need to understand about Project Vanguard and humanity's true history." 2 minutes to deadline, Thompson reported, though his voice had lost its urgency. The tactical situation had changed dramatically. Vexai snarled, his composure cracking. "Tricks and illusions will not save you. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. Your ancient toys cannot stand against our might." "Perhaps you'd like a demonstration," Rodriguez suggested mildly. One of the smaller Vanguard ships, a frigate-class vessel, suddenly vanished from the tactical display. Before anyone could react, it reappeared directly behind the Zephyrian formation, its weapons trained on their command ship's engines. "Quantum displacement successful," Rodriguez reported. "As you can see, Commander, our primitive technology allows for instantaneous repositioning across short distances. Your shields and targeting systems cannot track our movements." The bridge of the Phoenix erupted in excited chatter. Quantum displacement on this scale was considered theoretically impossible. The energy requirements alone should have been prohibitive. Vexay's tail lashed in frustration. "Parlor tricks. You violate the laws of physics." "We redefine them," Rodriguez corrected. "Your deadline has expired, Commander. You may either withdraw peacefully or face the full capabilities of Vanguard Fleet 7. Choose wisely." For a long moment, the two fleets faced each other in tense silence. Sarah could see the calculations running behind Vexay's eyes, the warrior's pride warring with tactical reality. His sensors would be showing him the same impossible energy readings that the Phoenix was detecting. Finally, Vexay spoke, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "This sector is contested. The Empire will return with appropriate force to claim what is rightfully ours." The Zephyrian fleet began to pull back, their formations shifting to withdrawal patterns. Within minutes, they had jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Phoenix alone with the transformed Vanguard fleet. Rodriguez's image smiled warmly. "Well done, Admiral. Now shall we discuss the real history of humanity's expansion into the stars." An hour later, Sarah, Alina, and a small security detail stood in the docking bay of the command carrier Destiny's Dawn. The interior was unlike anything they had expected. Instead of cramped corridors and utilitarian spaces, they found themselves in a vast chamber that seemed to extend far beyond the ship's visible hull. "Spatial compression technology," Rodriguez explained as she met them in person. Despite being in quantum stasis for over 2 centuries, she appeared exactly as she had on the view screen. The interior of each ship exists in a quantum fold, allowing for much greater volume than external dimensions would suggest. She led them through corridors that pulsed with soft light, past chambers where crew members lay in cryogenic pods, their consciousness presumably uploaded into the ship's neural network like their captain. "How many people are aboard these ships?" Alina asked, her scientific mind trying to process everything she was seeing. Each capital ship carries 50,000 colonists, Rodriguez replied. The entire fleet holds approximately 500,000 souls. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, artists, teachers. Everything needed to rebuild human civilization. They entered a vast chamber dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy. 12 points of light pulsed in different sectors, each marked with a designation. The 12 fleets of Project Vanguard, Rodriguez explained, each launched to a different region of space, each with a specific mission. We are Fleet 7, tasked with developing defensive technologies and serving as guardians for the eventual reunification. Sarah studied the display. Have you been in contact with the other fleets? Not directly. Quantum entanglement communicators allow us to know they still exist, but active communication risked detection. We've waited, watched, and prepared for the day when humanity would need us. But why the secrecy? Elena asked. Why weren't these colonies recorded in our history? Rodriguez's expression grew somber. Because Project Vanguard was born from humanity's darkest hour. In 2086, our scientists made a terrible discovery. First contact with alien species wasn't decades away. It had already happened, and it hadn't gone well. She waved her hand, and the display changed to show Earth as it had been in the late 21st century. Small scout ships from various species had been visiting Earth for years, abducting humans, conducting experiments. World governments kept it secret to prevent panic. But when we finally captured and interrogated one of these scouts, we learned the truth. The display shifted to show star maps with expanding spheres of influence. The galaxy was already divided among ancient empires. Humanity was seen as a primitive species, useful only as subjects for study or as a future servant race. Our technology was centuries behind theirs. In any direct confrontation, we would lose. So Project Vanguard was created, Sarah concluded. Exactly. If we couldn't match their technology directly, we had to develop along completely different paths. Quantum mechanics, consciousness transfer, dimensional folding. Technologies that the established powers had dismissed as impossible or impractical. We hid our advances, made our ships appear primitive, and sent them out to prepare for the inevitable day when humanity would face the galaxy's powers. Rodriguez led them to another chamber, this one containing what looked like a massive quantum computer. Streams of data flowed across its surfaces like living light. This is the collective, she explained. The merged consciousness of Fleet 7's crew. We exist as both individuals and as a united intelligence, able to process information and react at speeds impossible for biological minds. It's incredible, Elena breathed. The philosophical implications alone are staggering, yes, Rodriguez agreed, but necessary. The Zephyrians you face today are just one of dozens of expansionist species. The Luminari, despite their condescension, are actually among the more benevolent. There are far worse things in the darkness between stars. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. So what happens now? The Zephyrians will return, probably with a larger fleet. And once word spreads about your technology, others will come. Rodriguez smiled, and for the first time, Sarah saw hope in her eyes. Now, Admiral, we stop hiding. The 12 fleets will reunite, and humanity will claim its rightful place among the stars. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Our technology, developed in desperation, offers something unique. The ability to defend without destroying, to shield without aggressive expansion. She gestured to the star map, where the 12 points of light began to pulse more brightly. Each fleet developed different aspects of the same core technologies. Fleet 1 perfected biological adaptation. Fleet 3 mastered energy manipulation. Fleet 5 became experts in dimensional physics. Together, we represent a new paradigm in galactic civilization. And Earth? Sarah asked. In our history, the climate crisis was averted, resources were managed, and humanity slowly expanded into space through conventional means. A carefully crafted fiction, Rodriguez admitted. Earth did recover, but only because Project Vanguard included more than just the colony fleets. Hidden installations, secret research bases, and technological catches were left behind. Key individuals in each generation were recruited to guide humanity's development, preparing for this moment. Sarah's mind reeled at the implications. You're saying our entire history for the past 2 centuries has been orchestrated. Guided, not orchestrated. Humanity made its own choices, fought its own battles, achieved its own victories. We simply ensured that when the time came, you would be ready to stand with us. An alarm chimed softly, and Rodriguez checked a display on her wrist. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. The Zephyrians are returning with reinforcements as expected. They're bringing friends. I'm reading Skorathi dreadnoughts and Vex-High mercenary cruisers. Sarah felt a familiar pre-battle tension, but Rodriguez seemed unconcerned. Admiral, would you care to witness why the ancient powers should have taken humanity more seriously? They returned to the command center, where the merged consciousness of the collective was already implementing defensive strategies. The enemy fleet, nearly 100 ships strong, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Incoming transmission, one of Rodriguez's officers reported. War Commander Vex-High appeared on screen, his scales now deep purple with rage. Humans, your deception ends now. Surrender your ships and technology, or face annihilation. Rodriguez stepped forward, her quantum form solidifying, as she drew power from the ship's systems. Commander Vex-High, you still don't understand. These aren't just ships, they're seeds of a new future. For too long, the galaxy's powers have stagnated, secure in their technological superiority. You've forgotten how to innovate, how to think beyond established patterns. She raised her hand, and the entire Vanguard fleet began to glow with an inner light. We are humanity's answer to extinction, not through conquest, but through evolution. Witness the birth of the Terran Collective. The 23 ships of Fleet 7 began to merge, their quantum fields overlapping and intertwining. Matter flowed like liquid between vessels, creating new configurations that defied conventional design. Where there had been individual ships, a single massive construct took shape, part vessel, part entity, wholly unprecedented. By the Ancient Ones, someone whispered on the Phoenix Bridge. The transformation completed, the merged fleet spoke with 1,000 voices in perfect harmony. We are the Vanguard. We are humanity's will to survive, and we reject your paradigm of conquest and subjugation. The Zephyrian Alliance opened fire, hundreds of energy weapons lighting up space. But their attacks hit nothing. The Vanguard Collective existed partially in quantum flux, allowing energy to pass harmlessly through spaces between atoms. Quantum phase shielding, Elena breathed. They've weaponized the uncertainty principle itself. The collective responded not with weapons, but with waves of dimensional distortion that disabled enemy ships without destroying them. Zephyrian vessels found their engines offline, their weapons powerless, their shields collapsed. In minutes, the entire enemy fleet hung helpless in space. We offer you a choice. The collective spoke. Withdraw and reconsider your approach to other species, or remain here, disabled but unharmed, until your governments agree to new terms of coexistence. Sarah watched in amazement as the seemingly invincible armada surrendered without a single casualty on either side. It was a display of power unlike anything in galactic history. The ability to completely neutralize enemies without killing them. Rodriguez turned to Sarah, her form separating from the collective to speak individually. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, Admiral. Not destruction, but transformation. Not conquest, but protection. The 12 fleets will offer this same choice to every aggressive species we encounter. And if they refuse to change, Sarah asked, then they'll find themselves perpetually unable to wage war. Our technology doesn't just defend, it makes traditional warfare obsolete. Energy weapons, kinetic strikes, even antimatter warheads All can be neutralized or redirected. The age of might makes right is ending. As the disabled Zephyrian fleet began to retreat, accepting the collective's terms, Sarah felt she was witnessing the dawn of a new era. The ancient ships that had been mocked and dismissed were revealing themselves as harbingers of fundamental change. "What do you need from us?" she asked Rodriguez. "Return to the Confederation. Tell them the truth about humanity's past and future. The 12 fleets will soon reunite, and we'll need Earth's children to stand with us. The galaxy's established powers won't accept change easily. There will be resistance, fear, perhaps even attempts to destroy us before we can fully emerge." Rodriguez extended her hand, and Sarah shook it, feeling the strange sensation of quantum energy flowing between them. But together, the hidden fleets and the visible civilization, humanity will reshape the galaxy, not through conquest, but through evolution, not as rulers, but as guardians of a new age. As the Phoenix prepared to depart, carrying news that would shake the foundations of human understanding, Sarah took one last look at the Vanguard Collective. The merged fleet had separated back into individual ships, but she could see the quantum connections that still linked them, threads of light binding them into something greater than the sum of their parts. The ancient fleet that had been laughed at by the Luminary and dismissed by the Zephyrians was, in fact, the most advanced technology in the galaxy, built not with superior resources or knowledge, but with desperation, imagination, and humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find unconventional solutions to impossible problems. The journey back to Confederation space would take weeks, but Sarah knew that by the time they arrived, the galaxy would already be changing. The other 11 fleets would be awakening, their own unique capabilities adding to the collective's power. Humanity's hidden children were coming home, bringing with them the promise of a future where might no longer made right, where protection trumped conquest, and where the primitive humans would teach the ancient powers a new way to live among the stars. The last thing Sarah saw as the Phoenix entered hyperspace was a message from Rodriguez on her personal communicator. "Welcome to humanity's real history, Admiral. The best is yet to come. Retriclade can make mistakes. Please double-check responses."